In a bustling city, Omari lived a quiet, structured life with his wife, Achieng, and their only daughter, Nyambura. Omari was a man who valued discipline and order above all else. A factory manager by profession, he took pride in running both his workplace and his household with precision. To outsiders, he appeared to be a dedicated father and husband, deeply invested in his family's well-being. Nyambura, a university student with a passion for art, was the light of Omari's life. He often spoke about her beauty and intelligence with pride, describing her as the future of their family. To friends and colleagues, he painted a picture of himself as a doting father who wanted the best for his daughter. But within the walls of their home, Omari's care was far more suffocating than loving. He demanded to know every detail of Nyambura's life. Whenever she left the house, she had to tell him exactly where she was going, who she would meet, and how long she would be gone. If her answers didn't satisfy him, he would lecture her for hours about safety and family values. Sometimes he insisted on dropping her off himself, even when it meant showing up unannounced at her university or the art studio where she worked on her projects. Omari's obsession extended to Nyambura's appearance. He scrutinized her clothing every morning before she left for class. "That skirt is too short," he would say, even when it fell below her knees. "Are you trying to attract the wrong kind of attention?" If she wore makeup, even something as simple as lip gloss, he would accuse her of being vain or trying to impress boys. He often berated her into changing her outfits, leaving her frustrated and humiliated. His control didn't stop at her physical appearance. Omari was deeply critical of Nyambura's choice of friends, often labeling them as bad influences without ever meeting them. If she spent too much time with someone he didn't approve of, he would find a way to isolate her from them, sometimes by outright forbidding her from seeing them, other times by manipulating her with guilt. "After all I've done for you," he would say, "is this how you repay me? By surrounding yourself with people who don't respect our family values?" Even Nyambura's passion for art wasn't spared from his control. Though he allowed her to study it, he constantly dismissed her dreams of becoming a professional artist. "Art is a hobby, not a career," he often said. "You need to focus on something that will actually support you and this family." If she brought home a new painting or drawing, Omari would criticize it, saying it was too abstract or pointless. He would remind her that her studies were only permitted because he was paying for them, and she owed it to him to succeed on his terms. These constant criticisms left Nyambura feeling trapped. Every decision she made, no matter how small, seemed to be met with resistance, judgment, or outright control. Omari's love felt like a cage, one lined with sharp edges that cut her every time she tried to spread her wings. Despite her frustration, Nyambura tried to maintain a sense of peace in the household, avoiding conflict where she could. She didn't want to upset her mother, Achieng, who often walked on eggshells around Omari. But the pressure of constantly living under his watchful eye was taking its toll. Nyambura began to withdraw, keeping her dreams and thoughts to herself. Her art, once a source of joy and freedom, became a secret rebellion, a world where she could express the emotions she dared not voice. Omari, however, viewed any attempt at independence as a threat. The more Nyambura tried to carve out space for herself, the tighter his grip became. He didn't see his behavior as harmful. To him, it was simply love, a father's duty to protect his daughter from a world he deemed unworthy of her. But in truth, his love was twisted, fueled not by care, but by an insatiable need for control. At home, Achieng played the role of the dutiful and supportive wife, a role she had grown accustomed to over the years. She rarely spoke unless spoken to, and even then, her words were measured, careful not to spark Omari's anger. During family gatherings, Omari often dominated conversations, answering questions on her behalf and brushing off any attempt to involve her. "She's too shy," he would say with a laugh, as if her silence was a charming quirk rather than a survival mechanism. Achieng would sit quietly beside him, her forced smile concealing the weight of her inner turmoil. Though her demeanor was outwardly calm, her eyes betrayed a quiet sadness, a sadness born from years of being overshadowed and silenced. Achieng had once been full of life, with dreams and ambitions of her own, but Omari's controlling nature had slowly eroded her sense of self. She felt trapped, bound by cultural expectations and a fear of his temper. Her few attempts to stand up for herself or for Nyambura had always been met with ridicule or harsh reprimands, leaving her more withdrawn with each passing year. Deep down, she longed to protect her daughter from the same fate, but fear kept her rooted in place, a silent observer of Omari's growing obsession. Nyambura's world began to change when she met Mani, a warm and confident young man who shared her love for art. The two met at an exhibition and quickly formed a bond, their shared dreams and laughter becoming a source of joy for Nyambura. Mani treated her as an equal, encouraging her to follow her passions and embrace her independence. When Nyambura introduced Mani to her parents, Omari's initial politeness masked a growing unease. He questioned Mani's intentions and expressed concerns about his influence on Nyambura. As their relationship deepened, Omari's demeanor shifted. His questions turned into demands, and his concerns became outright disapproval. He forbade Nyambura from seeing Mani, but she defied him, sneaking away to spend time with the man she loved. Mani, determined to show respect and prove himself worthy, decided to approach Omari directly to ask for permission to marry Nyambura. Though nervous about how Omari might react, Mani hoped that his gesture of respect would soften the older man's stern demeanor. During their conversation, Mani spoke earnestly about his love for Nyambura and his desire to build a life with her. Omari listened in silence, his expression unreadable, before finally agreeing to the proposal. However, his approval came with a strict and unusual condition. The newlyweds would have to live with him and Achieng in their home. Omari framed it as a way to keep the family close and ensure Nyambura's well-being. But it was clear to both Mani and Nyambura that his true intention was to maintain control. Despite their reservations, Mani and Nyambura accepted the condition, hoping the arrangement would ease the tension between them and Omari. Nyambura, in particular, felt conflicted. Part of her dreaded the idea of continuing to live under her father's watchful eye, but she also hoped that living together might allow Mani to win Omari's trust over time. Mani, ever optimistic, reassured Nyambura that they could make it work and that their love would carry them through. The couple clung to the hope that Omari's rigid demeanor might soften once he saw their commitment to each other, but they underestimated the extent of his need for control and the lengths he would go to in order to hold onto it. Life under Omari's roof became an unbearable test of endurance for Mani and Nyambura. Omari inserted himself into every aspect of their lives, monitoring their movements, questioning their decisions, and ensuring they never strayed from his rigid expectations. He imposed curfews on the couple as if they were still children and interrogated them whenever they returned home. Displays of affection between Mani and Nyambura were strictly forbidden. Even holding hands in Omari's presence would elicit disapproving stares or sharp remarks. Omari seemed to take every opportunity to criticize Mani, belittling his career as a graphic designer and questioning his ability to provide for Nyambura. Mani, who had tried so hard to win Omari's approval, soon realized that no effort would ever be enough to satisfy him. Achieng, though deeply sympathetic to their struggles, could do little to help. She made timid attempts to mediate, offering small words of encouragement to Mani and Nyambura when Omari wasn't listening. But whenever she tried to stand up to Omari, she was met with sharp rebukes or a cold, withering glare that left her retreating into silence. Mani's patience wore thin as the oppressive atmosphere took its toll on their relationship and his own mental well-being. One evening, after yet another tense dinner where Omari's cutting remarks had left both him and Nyambura seething in silence, Mani declared that they needed to leave. He couldn't endure Omari's toxic presence any longer. Nyambura hesitated, torn between her love for Mani and her deep-seated fear of her father's wrath. However, she knew Mani was right. Living under her father's control was slowly destroying them. Reluctantly, she agreed, and the couple began quietly making plans to move out and start fresh in a home of their own. Omari, sensing the growing distance and seeing his iron grip slipping away, became increasingly agitated. His fury simmered just beneath the surface, manifesting intense silences and bursts of anger over the smallest perceived slights. He couldn't bear the idea of losing the control he had fought so hard to maintain, and the thought of Nyambura leaving his home felt, to him, like an unforgivable betrayal. On the day Mani and Nyambura were packing to leave, a tense silence filled the house. Omari sat in the living room, his jaw clenched and his gaze fixed on the floor as the sound of suitcases being dragged and boxes being taped echoed through the home. Each sound felt like a hammer striking his pride, a reminder that his control was slipping away. He had always believed that his authority was absolute, that his love for Nyambura gave him the right to dictate every aspect of her life. Now, her decision to leave with Mani felt like the ultimate betrayal, a rejection not only of his rules, but of him as her father. As the couple prepared to load the last of their belongings into the car, Omari's simmering anger exploded into a violent outburst. He stormed into the hallway, shouting accusations and demanding that Nyambura stay. His words were laced with bitterness, calling her ungrateful and accusing Mani of corrupting her. When Nyambura, for the first time, stood her ground and firmly told him they were leaving, something inside Omari snapped. Grabbing a kitchen knife in a blind rage, he lashed out. Achieng rushed to intervene, her maternal instincts overriding her years of fear and submission. She stepped between Omari and Nyambura, pleading with him to calm down, but her efforts only enraged him further. Convinced that even Achieng had turned against him, Omari struck her down in a moment of madness. Nyambura's scream echoed through the house as her mother collapsed, and she and Mani tried desperately to escape. The couple raced toward the door, but Omari was relentless, his obsession driving him to a frenzy. He attacked Nyambura next, his vision clouded with rage as he saw her defiance as an unforgivable betrayal. Despite Mani's attempts to shield her, Omari's blows found their mark. Mani fought back with everything he had, his love for Nyambura giving him strength, but Omari's fury was overpowering. Nyambura's lifeless body fell to the floor, and Mani, gravely injured and bleeding, barely managed to stumble outside to call for help. As the sound of approaching sirens filled the air, Omari stood amidst the chaos he had created, his obsession now fully consuming him. Realizing the extent of what he had done, he turned the knife on himself, his final act leaving behind a tragic scene of shattered lives and unanswered questions. In the end, Omari's need for control destroyed everything he claimed to love, leaving only grief and silence in its wake. Mani, though physically and emotionally scarred, survived the brutal attack. His body carried the marks of Omari's violence, but the loss of Nyambura left deeper scars that would never fully heal. In the aftermath of her death, Mani channeled his grief into his art, using it as a means to honor her memory and raise awareness about the dangers of obsessive control. His work depicted the vibrant woman Nyambura had been, alongside the suffocating force of Omari's control that had ultimately led to tragedy. Through each piece, he gave voice to their story, shedding light on the psychological torment of living under such oppression. Omari's obsession and the tragic events that followed leave us questioning the boundaries of a father-daughter relationship. What happens when the bond that should be built on trust, love, and guidance becomes warped by obsession and possessiveness? Could Achieng have protected her daughter from her husband's destructive tendencies? Was she simply too trapped in her own fear to act, or was she complicit in allowing Omari's reign to continue unchecked? Was Omari's need to control Nyambura born out of a desire to protect her, or was it something deeper? An attempt to claim her in a way that goes beyond the natural affection a father should have for his daughter? Share your thoughts in the comments and let's discuss how this story resonated with you. If you enjoyed the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel for more intriguing stories. Thank you for watching.